college with me, okay?
Okay.
Hello, guys, and welcome to FNS Sports Media Podcast, episode 17. I'm Cooper.
My name's Aaron.
Let's get right into it.
Let's restart it. Turn the.
Why did you do that?
Take the.
Tape off?
Yeah, take the tape off.
Mm-hmm. Hello, guys, and welcome to FNS Sports Media Podcast, episode 17. My name's Cooper.
I'm Aaron.
Let's get right into it.
All right, let's jump right into it. So, baseball season for us Cardinal fans is kind of winding down a little bit. Not a whole lot to talk about baseball-wise, but my personal second favorite sport is college football, and there is all kinds of chaos going on right now. So, in the situation we've got right now, basically we're witnessing the death of the Pac-12 conference and the Big Ten being reborn as a monster super conference.
Yeah, just all the teams just swapping to other sides. Let's talk about how Deion Sanders thinks about this situation. Colorado coach Deion Sanders sees some hypocrisy in this week's conference realignment chaos. All this is about the money, he says. You know that. It's all about the bag. Everyone's chasing the bag. You get mad at the players when they chase it. How is that? How do the grown-ups get mad at the players for chasing it? What college are chasing it? Here's what you need to know. Sanders also fired a veiled shot back at Oregon coach Dan Lanning. Sanders cut off a question about the realignment question, saying he doesn't care about the teams that are moving. What do you think about this?
I actually like Deion Sanders. He's a breath of fresh air. You know, he got a lot of publicity when he was at Jackson State, but at the same time it was Jackson State, right? And so now that he's in a power conference, it's really kind of great to hear him talk on realignment. Between Deion Sanders and Lane Kiffin, it feels like they say all the things that the fans are saying. But he's right. Everybody's chasing money. The conferences are chasing money, and then, you know, how can the conference go and chase money and then criticize the players when the players are chasing the money, when the players are chasing money too? So, you know, it's just it's just a breath of fresh air to hear coaches talk in such a clear way. They don't give the coach speak of trying not to rock the boat or not trying to say something that's going to make somebody mad. Deion doesn't even care. He's just like, I'm going to tell you how it is. And so it was cool too how he flipped that press conference around also and made it about him and made it about his team. He followed up those questions by just talking about, hey, we're going to win. We're going to win. We're going to win. I don't know how many other ways I can say it. We're going to win. And so Deion's just excited to be in the spotlight again and to be at the spotlight at a school where winning. Not only can he win, but it'll matter when he does.
Yeah, it's just like Scott says it will feel West Coast modern. Said the network that day.
Yeah, I think I don't really know how. Like, I don't know. I don't know how it's gonna feel West Coast. It feels like spin, right? It feels like spin. So you move. You take Oregon and you take Washington. You take them out of the Pac-10, which stands for what? Pacific, right? So the Pacific. You take these teams that are on the Pacific coast and you put them in the Big Ten, which is just heart of America, Midwest, expanding all the way over to Rutgers, Maryland, over on the East Coast. You have this conference that goes across the entire country from East Coast to West Coast. I don't know how you're going to make that. I don't know how you're going to make that feel West Coast. It feels like spin, and in a way, it's sort of sad to see the death of one of the power conferences. You take away Oregon, you take away Washington, and then to the Big Ten, and then you lose Arizona State, Utah, all to the Big 12. You're left with what? Cal, Stanford, Oregon State.
Yeah,
you're left with not even the skeleton of that conference. You're left with like some of the teams that haven't really been overly competitive. Okay, Oregon State's been fine the past couple of years, but they're gone. That conference is dead. The conference is dead, and what killed it? The money. Money's what killed it. And it's just going to be a mess. It's going to be a mess. Think about this. What happens in football scheduling if Washington ends up with back-to-back road games against Rutgers and Maryland, or Penn State and Maryland? You fly out, play your game, you fly back for just a couple days to practice or whatever, then you fly back again. It's
not.
And that goes the other way too. What if Penn State has back-to-back games at Washington and Oregon? You're flying people all across the country. Just chasing money. And let's not even get started on the effect that that's going to have on sports like softball. Sports that don't generate money, sports that don't generate a whole lot of fan interest, but yet now that they're in this conference, they have to go to travel to these places. You have to make those trips. Somebody has to make those trips, whether it's flying from the West Coast to the East Coast or vice versa. Somebody's got to make those trips. It's going to be a mess. I'm not really looking forward to see how this works out. It feels kind of like pro sports, but just trying to hide it with college sports.
Yeah, and it's not like the fans on the West Coast don't watch football. They like football. It's just they're not going to be going to games every single time, say the Auburn fans.
Yeah, well, if you think about Auburn fans, they play in the SEC, or Auburn plays in the SEC. Auburn, Alabama is right in the heart of the SEC, and you can make any of those. You can drive to any of those games.
Yeah.
Okay, sure, going all the way to Austin or all the way to College Station, that's a long way, but you can still do it. You can drive it. You can hop in an RV and you can go, and you can do it without having to take off much work. But you can't drive across the country, and forget about college kids even going to those games. There's going to be
they still kind of go to college.
Yeah, and they're poor college kids, so it's going to be kind of a mess. We're already seeing the elite recruits on the West Coast abandoning some of the Pac-10 schools. And the process is only going to be accelerated.
Yeah, all right, let's get into the next section. So, a few days ago, we witnessed another no-hitter. Remember, last episode or 2 episodes, we talked about Framber Valdez's no-hitter. Mm-hmm. This time, we get to talk about Micheal Lorenzen's no-hitter.
Yeah, it's just another guy. It seems like these no-hitters are anymore being thrown by random players, right? Micheal Lorenzen's a good pitcher. Framber Valdez is a good pitcher. I wouldn't ever call either of those two guys completely dominant, but for one night, both of those guys were dominant.
Yeah, definitely. It was a cool story how Micheal Lorenzen, he grew up watching Nolan Ryan, and he said, I've watched every single one of Nolan Ryan's no-hitter. He told the NBC Sports Philadelphia during the post-game because like he always wanted to throw a no-hitter, and just the fact that he did it in front of the fan base, he couldn't believe it. But before that, his dream hadn't come true. He hadn't thrown a no-hitter, hadn't thrown a perfect game before that, and just.
I mean, he'd never even thrown a complete game before.
Yeah,
that.
definitely. His longest scoring start was 7 innings, less than 3 weeks earlier, a July 20 start for the Tigers, in which he gave up 3 hits in Kansas City. And then in his first game in Philadelphia as a Philly, he picked up a no-hitter.
I mean, it's one of those classic examples of one of those trade deadline trades immediately paying dividends, right? Yeah. So it made the Phillies front office look real smart trading for him at the deadline, when in his first start he's going to pop up and throw the no-hitter.
Yeah, definitely. And he also how many players who played in this year's All-Star game were traded at the deadline? Exactly 1. And that was Micheal Lorenzen. And 2 starts later, he threw a no-hitter.
Yeah, I think another thing that's cool is, if you would have asked, I kind of hinted at it earlier, when you ask, like, who's the most dominant pitcher in baseball, nobody would ever say Micheal Lorenzen.
Yeah,
but if you look at the stats since July 1st, all right, who's the pitcher that has the lowest ERA in all of baseball?
Micheal Lorenzen.
And so, obviously a no-hitter is going to help those statistics out quite a bit. But at the same time, he's got the lowest ERA. So in 6 starts since the beginning of July, he's got a 1.11 ERA, which puts him just ahead of Blake Snell, who has had a pretty dominant season this year. But 1.11, that's a lights out ERA.
Yeah, definitely. Since trading the trade deadline, he was moved in late July. Since the trading deadline was moved to late July in 1986, only one pitcher has changed teams in the deadline and then thrown a no-hitter for his new team. That was who else but Michael Fears.
Yeah, another one of those random no name. I shouldn't say no name.
He's just not like a Nolan Ryan.
Right,
you know
random non-dominant pitchers to turn around and throw a no-hitter.
Yeah, he was traded. Fears was traded by the Brewers to the Astros 2015 deadline. Then he no-hit the Dodgers in his 4th start as an Astro.
And how rare is it for any pitcher to throw a no-hitter in their first start at home for any franchise? Here's a stat for you. Lorenzen was just the 2nd pitcher to throw a no-hitter in his first start at home for any franchise in the last 125 years. It's been since the 1800s, I guess one other person has done it, but it's only happened twice since the 1800s. And he's the first one to do it in more than 6 decades.
Yeah, definitely. According to MLB.com's Sarah Langs via the Elias Sports Bureau, only 4 pitchers besides Lorenzen have picked up a no-hitter in his first start with the team. So there's 4 of them. And Don Cardwell with the Cubs, May 15, 1960. Jay Hughes, who's for the Orioles, April 22nd, 1898. Bumpus Jones, Reds, October 15, 1892.
Bumpus Jones, man. What a dominant outing that was back in 1892. October 15th, getting towards the end, especially with a guy like Bumpus. Man, a guy like Bumpus, I'm sure he was lights out.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Probably had like 24 strikeouts.
At least.
Ed Cushman, Milwaukee Cream Cities, September 28th. Man, Milwaukee Cream Cities.
The Milwaukee Cream Cities. I think they should bring that team name back.
They definitely should. 1884. But another thing, he pitched against the Nationals. They're in last place. They have their issues. But one thing that they didn't seem to be a prime candidate to be a no-hit. Like, they're still a major league team. Like they can still hit. They still got those they got Lane Thomas, their third baseman, their shortstop. They're all like fine. They're not like the Oakland Athletics that are just like a bunch of guys that they just called up.
Yeah, hitting hasn't been the Nationals' problem this year. And you wouldn't necessarily think that they would be prime candidates to be no-hit.
Yeah, and in that game, the Nationals only hit 3 balls with a greater than a 50% hit probability, according to StatCast, all of them in the last 3 innings. Keibert Ruiz and Aldona how DeMauro Vargas grounded out in the 7th on 2 hard hit balls on each that had a probability of 5-10. So I guess that took some really good plays to keep that no-hitter going.
Always takes defense and a little bit of luck to throw a no-hitter. You know, you can be the best pitcher, you can be the best pitcher in the world, but always going to need at least a little bit of luck, and you're going to need your team to play some good defense.
Yeah, because the chances are you're not going to strike out every single batter. You're not going to strike out 27 batters.
Exactly. Like Lorenzen even admitted as much after the game that he needed the defense. He got 15 fly ball outs. He only had 5 strikeouts. So, you know, when you're thinking about that, you need 27 outs in a game, right?
Yeah.
You need 27 outs in a game. He only struck out 5. So the rest of it came from his defense. And so when we think about the last 40 complete game no-hitters, only 2 have had fewer strikeouts. Reed Detmer struck out only 2 in his no-hitter for the Angels last year, and Henderson Alvarez struck out 4 in his no-hitter for the Marlins back in 2013.
Yeah, that's actually crazy. That just tells you the Phillies defense is just that good and just can make those normal average plays.
Yep.
And Micheal Lorenzen, his 124 pitches were by far a career high. His previous high was 107, more than 8 years ago, April 29th, 2015. Shows how long he's been pitching. He surpassed that pitch total before the end of the 8th inning with 110.
Yeah, and, you know, Phillies manager, you know, as the manager, you got to take all these things into consideration, right? You don't want to pull a guy with a no-hitter, but you also know that this guy he's pitching more pitches than he's thrown in several years. You know, Phillies manager Rob Thompson, he talked with reporters after the game, and he said it was the first time in his career that he'd managed a team where the pitcher threw a no-hitter. And he said that he was way too close to pulling Lorenzen out of the game. In the 7th inning, after the 7th inning, he went down and talked to him. Hey man, how you doing? Because he knew that he was at 100 pitches through 7, and of course, Lorenzen's going to be like, hey, Skip, I'm good.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't want to get pulled out. And so he said, all right, I'm going to give you 20 pitches. I'm going to give you 20 pitches. You got 20 pitches to figure it out, and that's it. And he went and he got the quick outs that he needed. And so it was great. It was a fantastic moment for the Phillies, for Lorenzen, for manager Rob Thompson, and everybody else. It was a great night.
Yeah. A special thanks to Clutch Points, The Athletic, ESPN, and MLB.com for all the information and stats. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and we'll see you guys later.